as always, we love our FSD updates. This week there was a lot of controversy over FSD. There was a news program that went out with a debate between
Yeah.
two fairly well-known
That's being
Tesla
polite.
individuals around FSD. Dan O'Dowd or Dowd or
Dowd.
I'm terrible at names. Say it again, Doug.
Dan O'Dowd.
O'Dowd. I know all about him. I just don't know how to say his name. So
Irish, I
he's
guess.
notorious critic of Tesla and FSD, and did the Super Bowl ad earlier this year, and is constantly saying Elon needs to go to jail and all these horrible things.
Well, his opinions are obviously quite objective, and so he speaks honestly from the heart.
Yeah, he's very strong opinions. And then he was debating Ross Gerber, who's basically an investment banker type. He's like the CEO of an investment company, and he's been doing investment for years and is a big pro Tesla stock guy.
I think at one point he was campaigning to get on the board, wasn't he?
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, he was trying to get on the board of Tesla. So anyway, so they had a video, and it did. There was a lot of some shade thrown back and forth. What were your thoughts of it, Doug? I watched it. I thought it was interesting. I don't know. I kind of saw both of their sides.
Well, I guess first we should sort of talk about what happened, right? And someone can correct me what the setup was, but Gerber is such a pro Tesla guy, right? And he's impressed with FSD, like many of us are, but also many of us are well aware of its limitations. But Gerber was enough of a had enough faith in it that, okay, let me bring this guy who's a known skeptic ride along in my car, so Gerber has control of things. And Dan comes in and he brings all his cameras and things. And there were a couple disengagements, as Tesla calls them. And some were, kind of embarrassing. In particular, the car ran a pretty obvious stop sign. Now, it was an interesting kind of intersection. You only got to see the stop sign sort of at the last moment. But the car runs a stop sign, and if Gerber hadn't slammed on the brakes, he would have T-boned somebody, right? So that's a pretty big deal. And so on Twitter, at least, they've been sort of going back and forth. Like Dan's been constantly showing this clip of where the car almost killed somebody, as he'd say it, right? It almost killed somebody, and life as we know it almost ended. But funnily enough, Gerber's response has been to ask him, don't use my name and stuff like that. Like, it's not a really good defense, It's like, don't use my name to promote your anti-Tesla stuff. I was like, okay, but you need to address what happened. And I think, if the Tesla fans just kind of dialed it back a little bit and just talked about reality, yes, it's not quite ready yet. Yes, it's still just a level 2 system, and we have to pay attention. In fact, the car spends a lot of time making sure you are still paying attention. Then I think it'll be fine, right? I mean, what other vehicle that you can own could do all the stuff that it can do, right? So that the key is, and I think it should be I don't think there should be recalls or anything like that, but I think it should be a public information thing, like even a public information campaign that, yes, you need to actually pay attention, because the marketing, or what you see by cheerleaders about this is like, oh, it's ready to go, and robotaxis any day now. Well, that day isn't today, and so you still need to pay attention. And I think that's a fine reality that we should all accept. I don't think that's a negative thing necessarily, right?
Right. So, Chris, you do a lot of test driving and testing of FSD. What did you think of the scenario that they set up, and like what happened? Were you surprised that they had the disengagements that they had?
No. They went for a drive. Dan, a little more background, challenged a lot of the kind of big YouTuber-y people to come to him and do some of his tests and show how terrible it is. And pretty much nobody responded. He got to me. He's like, hey, nobody will come out. Will you come? And I was like, okay, fine. If nobody else comes out, I'll come out there. That's fine. I DM'd him. He didn't respond for a while. And then he ended up replying to me and saying, hey, Ross Gerber is going to come out. We'll let you know the date and you can come out. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
in the back of my
whatever.
head, I'm like, I'm not a billionaire like you. I can't hop on a private jet and do whatever I want. I have a job. I have a family. So I was willing to kind of sacrifice some of that if no one would come out. So he told me the date, and I was like, sorry, I can't make it. I'm going to go to work that day. And he, then calls me a coward, and everybody's a coward, blah, blah, blah. So then they went out for their drive, and they did their, drive, and Ross said it went perfectly. Nothing bad happened. And Dan said, they almost died. That's literally what he said. He said the car tried to kill us. It's like, come on, calm down. The situation specifically, the stop sign, I can, make it sound crazy from either side, or I can make it, either side sound good. It was going to miss the stop sign, but Ross hit the brake and everything was fine. Or I can say that idiot car didn't even see a stop sign and almost T-boned someone. Both of those sentences are true, right? So overall, I'm not surprised he had a disengagement. It happens all the time. And in my opinion, I've said before, Ross's biggest mistake is it seemed as he was going into this trying to show how amazing FSD is. And it's very cool. I agree. I love it. It can do some amazing things, but he was kind of pushing it to the limit of like, look at all these things it can do. Whereas a better approach, Dan's not saying it can't do cool things. Dan is trying to prove, he's trying to show everyone it's dangerous, right? So how you show that it's not is you take over early and often. Whenever it does something even a little weird, you just tap the brake. We all know if you've used it, it's super simple to take over. So in my opinion, if Dan would have just tapped the brake, 1 to 2 seconds earlier, that small of an amount of time, we wouldn't be talking about this right now.
You mean Ross, right?
Oh, sorry, Ross. I'm sorry. Yes, Ross was driving. Dan was in the passenger seat. So yeah, if Ross had tapped the brake 1 to 2 seconds earlier, it wouldn't even be a conversation. It would have been like, oh, it seemed it didn't see that stop sign and Ross hit the brake. The end. So I don't think anything terrible happened. They both came out with pretty decent videos, at least entertaining, if nothing else. So it's worth.
I guess though the thing is that they both had their own goals and biases, right? Like Dan 100%. Was going to find something wrong with it no matter what, right?
Yeah, and you only need that one clip. He got his tweet about that got well over 10 million views. And he paid to promote it. He was kind of pushing it as an ad. So he paid a bunch of money for more views, but still like that one instance of it missing the stop sign and having to have Ross hit the brake, got a lot of views. And then Ross made his own video showing that their planned drive, kind of Ross's point was like, all right, we planned this drive and the car did everything perfectly. I never took over. After we were done testing, I was taking Dan home. And that's when this stop sign thing happened. He's like, so our planned thing worked perfectly. And then there was, the disengagement later. It's like, okay, well, that's all Dan needs is one thing to kind of latch onto. So
yeah. Who decides when something is done or over? Like, oh, this part's on background as if we're in an interview.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the cameras they had more cameras than people in that car and the cameras were recording all the time. So,
and if Ross was, smart and they knowing what Dan's going for, as soon as you made it through the course, I would have personally driven it the rest of the time. I wouldn't have used it.
Right. Why even use it? That's a great point. Why even have it on? Yeah. You should just manually drive like, oh, we did it. Who cares? Overall, like, I don't think it's really a big deal for either side. But people I think the drama of it more than anything.
Sure.
And so what was the take home though? Like in terms of like, there's us who are in the stuff and kind of breathe it every day. But what do you think the general public take home was, that the car tried to kill them or that, it was just, whatever.
Yeah. So kind of your general person, I think, honestly, I think most like general people aren't really going to see it. It's going to be the people that either already hate it or already love it. But if somebody was to see just that, they knew nothing about full self-driving, I think they'd see the headline and be like, whoa, almost killed them. And then they'd see where the car stopped pretty hard after Ross took over and maybe like, wow, that's a crazy thing. And it's one of those things where, if somebody, so let's say it actually was super dangerous and Tesla's trying to hide it or something, that kind of could spark people to look further into it and see actually, more info and more data rather than that one clip and be like, whoa, it actually is dangerous. But what I think would really happen is if that exact video sparked someone's interest, they're going to go to YouTube and they're going to find all the thousands of hours of video on YouTube and they're going to watch all those videos and they'll probably see other instances like that, but they'll see also where the car does well or where somebody takes over in a reasonable amount of time. And then they'll come to the conclusion, hey, this isn't that dangerous. Like, look, there's thousands of videos on here and there's no accidents. Like, must not be that bad. So I think if someone really digs into it, then they wouldn't be too alarmed. But yeah, if you just look at the headline of it, it might be, you might think it's a little scary.
The hyperbole of it tried to kill us. I'm trying to think how would I apply that? Because I definitely, when I describe my autopilot experience and when I first used it, I would say the car definitely did try to kill me. And the only reason I say that is because it wasn't through inaction; it was through action that it tried to kill me, and that I'm
actively trying to kill you.
Yeah, I'm just driving on a two-way road, and there's the double yellow, and for some reason, I don't know why, the car decided to veer into the oncoming traffic, which I promptly prevented it from doing. But that's when the headlights turn red and it's really trying to kill me, right?
Right.
But okay, it was supposed to stop at a stop sign, but didn't. That's kind of from inaction, but it depends how you want to look at it.
Yeah, I actually made a whole video almost about that exact topic because Steve Wozniak was on a CNN or something, and this wasn't even the topic he was talking about, but of course Elon Musk and Tesla get a lot of clicks. So at the end of the interview, I mean, he was about to sign off, and they're like, "Oh, wait, by the way, have you talked to Elon Musk or something like that?" And then he went off talking about his experience with Teslas and how I think he drives a Lucid now, but how autopilot tried to kill him. And he made this whole, like, because they were talking about AI, it was kind of talking about ChatGPT and stuff. He's like, yeah, if you want to see an AI that tries to kill you, go use a Tesla. And I actually made a whole video about just that comment because it's like, that's just way too misleading. I agree with you. The thing makes mistakes. If you fall asleep, you're probably better off in that car than any other car. But
I think so, yeah.
At least it can try to stop and try to, avoid people and stuff.
Might save your life.
Exactly right. Whereas another car is no, it's not. It's just going to plow into a wall. So, I made a whole video about like, that's so misleading to say it intentionally is doing any of those things. Like, sure, it makes mistakes, but it's not trying to kill anyone. That's crazy. Like in the AI talk space. So, those, I don't know. In my opinion, those words matter. It's very important the way you phrase these things.